What happens when building your dream home nearly breaks your marriage? In today's episode, I'm sharing a raw, honest story from my own life. A season when stress, exhaustion, and unmet expectations left me wondering if my relationship with my husband would survive. But through that struggle, I learned a powerful truth. When we try to manage everything in our own strength, we end up drained and discouraged. The good news? God is the ultimate builder and the best general contractor for your home and your family. This is the fourth episode in the Blueprints for Building Your Spiritual Dream Home series. So far, we've seen why we need a blueprint, discovered the best location, and created a vision for our dream home. Today, we're going to talk about why God needs to be the builder of your spiritual dream home and how surrendering control to Him changes everything. Welcome to the Kitchen Table series of the Building Strong Homes podcast, where faith meets family in practical ways. I'm your host, Carol Roper, former home designer turned encourager for women who want homes rooted in God's Word. Think of these episodes as a cozy chat over coffee, helping you build a spiritual home that stands strong. So pull up a chair, friend. It's time to start building. Unless the Lord builds a house, its builders labor in vain. Psalm 127:1. Although the word divorce has never been uttered between my husband and me in our 40 years of marriage, there was a time I was afraid it might become a part of our vocabulary. Except for moving from our first home, a little trailer in his parents' cow pasture, into an old home in town, my husband John has always been the one who decided when we needed to move. Even though we've only changed residences twice since then, each time I hesitated to leave. The first time he made the declaration, I knew he was right. But I loved the little home we'd made our own through lots of elbow grease and as much money as we could afford. It was now the cute bungalow I'd envisioned. But since I was pregnant with our second child and our small house had only 2 bedrooms, we didn't know where we'd put the baby. When John asked me to start drawing plans for our next home, I balked, but then gave in since I knew the move was inevitable. Being pregnant while taking care of an obstinate toddler and packing up all of our belongings was stressful enough, but having my husband act as the general contractor of our new home brought the tension between us to a level we'd never experienced. To save money, John did as much work as he could himself, and I certainly appreciated that. However, between his working all day at his own business, then working during his off hours at the new house, we rarely saw each other. I felt alone and weary with all of my responsibilities, which also included choosing every detail of what went into our house. He was exhausted and felt unappreciated for all of his efforts, too. I remember one night during the construction, we had an argument, a huge blow-up. Afterwards, John immediately went to bed. My 2-year-old daughter Elise was still awake as I sat in the darkness of the den, crying uncontrollably. I'd never felt more hurt and alone in my entire life. I wondered if our marriage would survive the fallout from the arrival of a new baby and a new house so close together. Although she was only a toddler, Elise knew I was hurting. She climbed up in my lap and patted me while saying, "Love you, Mommy." I'll never forget that sweet moment when I just wanted someone to sympathize with me. God gave me hope through my sweet daughter. We finally did make it to move-in day, 3 weeks after our son Jacob was born. It took a while for things to settle down between John and me, but eventually, through prayer and perseverance, we were back on solid ground. Acting as the general contractor of a building project requires much time, commitment, organization, and follow-through. Even though John and I were both familiar with the construction industry, being responsible for the day-to-day oversight of construction was excruciating. It took both of us to carry out all the work involved in the process, and before it was over, I wondered if the toll it took on our marriage was worth it. To be honest, during that time, I had recently recommitted my life to Christ and didn't have the spiritual maturity needed to handle the pressure well. I'm sure I put a lot of my stress onto my husband, expecting him to meet my every need. The overload of decisions required to finish a home can take an enormous amount of time, research, and effort, especially for someone like me who's so detail oriented. And we didn't have the internet back then, so I had to visit every store and choose items in person. Being pregnant, lugging around a toddler, and trying to choose just the right faucet, light fixture, paint color, etc., was beyond exhausting. John was worn out trying to keep up with his business obligations and working all hours of the day and night, 7 days a week, trying to get us into the new home our growing family needed. Taking on everything necessary to build godly homes with our own strength will drain us both physically and spiritually, even if we work together with our spouse. We need someone we can look to who is more than capable for the daily oversight of our homes. Who better to act as the general contractor and manage who and what comes into our houses than God? Or to take on the overall responsibility of making our home into the place of comfort and joy we long for. He's great enough to do it. But we must surrender control of our families, our homes, and ourselves to Him so that we can enjoy the peace and provision only He can bring. We don't want to waste our time laboring in vain while He's waiting for us to request access to His awesome power. He can take our dream home from a design on a blueprint to one that's alive and thriving. After all, He did create every beautiful thing in existence, and He can do the same for you and me. Here are today's blueprint tips. Take a few minutes each day to ask God how you can best meet your husband and children's needs. He may surprise you by revealing something you'd never expect. Think about the people who come into your home on a regular basis. Do they build you and your family up, or do they wear away the peace of your family? Then evaluate the media that's allowed into your home. Whether it's through television, social media, or video games, how can you make sure what's coming in is edifying and unifying your family rather than causing it to fray? In what ways might you be laboring in vain, leaving God out of the building process? By putting more effort into your work rather than your home and family? Or striving so hard to keep your home perfectly clean and beautiful that no one enjoys being there? Ask God to help you let go of anything that may be keeping you, your husband, and kids from experiencing real joy. Friend, building a godly home isn't about doing more, it's about surrendering more. When we try to manage every detail in our own strength, we end up exhausted and discouraged. But when we invite God to be the master builder, He brings peace, joy, and purpose into every corner of our home. Take time this week to ask Him what needs to change and trust His blueprint for your family. If this episode encouraged you, would you share it with a friend and leave a rating and review? Your feedback helps more women discover hope and practical tools for building strong homes. And don't forget to visit carolroper.org for the first episode of this series, Open Your Blueprint. Building a godly home starts with surrender. Trust God's plan. Invite Him into every detail and watch Him create something beautiful. Until next time, don't give up, especially when you're working toward building your spiritual dream home. Don't give in and keep building strong. Remember, your legacy is being built one faithful step at a time. Thanks so much for listening.